How the camera space, is it better to,
Here,
okay?
at least, this will be where slides are.
Yes. Oh, I'm like,
Questions?
I got an adjustment for Zoom too. Okay, I think we're good. I think this. Good.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
Yeah, so I will officially call this meeting to order. And first of all, I want to say thanks for John and George for joining us and learning about our efforts to evaluate our generator for emergency backup power needs. Next slide, please.
We were not friends today, I'm sorry, guys.
It's okay. Trading the spots. Did I ever do get a stamps to flip through the deck? Yeah. I usually have it right here, yeah. So, there you go. You got it. Thank you. So, agenda is, we're going to talk about the operational criteria, system requirements. Some of this language might feel a little bit strange, but we're early on trying to define what the architecture of our system is going to be. So it's important to talk about requirements that architecture needs to satisfy. We came up with a number of architecture options that we traded against each other. So we'll be talking about that. And then the process that we used to help rate each architecture against each other and eventually come to a recommendation that'll have some open discussion and Q&A, and then we'll talk about what our next steps are. Next slide, please. So just some of the logistics then for the meeting. We'll take questions anytime. Let's not worry about holding them to the end because some of this can get a little bit complicated and detailed. So we'll just take questions real time as you have them. We have posted the package. We've actually created a page under the streets and sewer because this is the first of several public meetings that we're going to have. So we'll just start accumulating information under Guy's page on the web page. The materials that we planned is for about a 60-minute meeting. So with that in mind, we'll just move on. Next slide. So the first question that we wanted to answer is why are we even looking into a backup generator? So we currently have a 40 kilowatt backup generator that provides electrical backup power during outages. Its primary function is for the lift station for the sewer utility. It does have some secondary uses, those being some very reserved or minimal circuits for the town hall and also the maintenance farm. We run a test cycle on this generator to just confirm it's operating. About mid 2024, we had a failure on one of those test startups. We were able to partially recover it quickly, but full recovery was delayed due to parts availability. Today, it remains, now that it's fully repaired, it remains fully functional. We never really lost the ability to cover outages at the lake for its primary function being the lift station. But what the experience did kind of communicate to us is that we have an aging system. It's 25 years old. And we really don't have a dependable mitigation plan for parts availability issues and et cetera. So the next thing that's been going on is that town has been updating its continuity of operations plan. And it identifies certain essential functions within that plan so that we can maintain operations during threats and bad weather conditions. The capacity limitations of the current system and some of the reliability concerns basically does not fully support that continuity of operations plan at this time. So knowing that, council back in June initiated this engineering assessment to take a look at the requirements that we have on the generator and assess the current capabilities and make a recommendation if change is needed. Okay, so that's why we're here. Next, please. All right, so we assembled a project team. We've got 3 members from the town of Clear Lake, 2 council folks, myself and Bert Elliott, and then we had Guy Rogers as our superintendent. We have ERI, Jessica Heil, who's been a long time support to Guy on the sewer utility itself. Most recently, she helped design and oversee the construction of the condo lift station. And then we have a new person, and we're very proud to have his capability available to us from CHI Engineering, Jim Hyde, who I introduced to you personally. So next. Okay, so if you've been following the road committee meetings and presentations, you know that we like to identify the stakeholders that we need to communicate information. This also identifies the person that's responsible for each of the tasks and those that are accountable, consulted, and informed. We are currently right here at the architecture public meeting. And some of the stakeholders we've identified is all of council, because they'll be making decisions on whether to go forward with this project or not. The council infrastructure liaison, which is myself, which has some responsible participation in the overall project. We have a council liaison for the continuity of operations, which is Bert. We have a project team, which I just introduced. We have the superintendent. We have the engineering firms. They have certain responsibilities and accountabilities in the project. The community, largely an eye for informed, because we're doing things that we want to make sure that addresses any community needs and or concerns. The utility provider, NIPSCO, is part of this project for consultation. And the clerk treasurer and billing clerk for financial and communication needs. And then the construction contractor eventually, if we get that far, and the marshal. Next. Okay, so any questions on the introduction? Let's talk a little bit about the systems requirements. Next, please. Okay, so you probably could have guessed, you know, it all comes out of the continuity of operations plan. It pretty much addresses all of the requirements that we gathered in our efforts so far. You can see that at the very top, we have the plan. Within the plan, there are 3 essential functions. The gold line tracks to where in two of the three functions, we have essential equipment listed, identifying the need for a backup generator. So it falls under the municipal sewage system, and it falls under essential function 3, town governance and administration. Essentially keeps the town hall open. Next. So if you break it out from there and you look into each of those essential functions and you look at the operations that we identified 9 total criteria that we wanted to look at when assessing the various architectures. And those criteria are listed on the left side. Then under each criteria, we distilled that or defined it in terms of a requirement that we would impose on the future design activities for the architecture. And then within that, there are categories of compliance. So Jessica will talk a little bit more about that. So I'll let her describe that. And then the last column on this chart is a weighting factor. This is a representation of how important that particular criteria is, according to the team's perception. So 1 is least, 3 is moderately important, and 5 is very important. So power capacity and load matching is our first criteria. System complexity is our second criteria. Both of those are coming in as a moderate importance. Installation requirements are very important. This is where we're trying to maximize the reuse of the current system as far as electrically and physically where it's located. Reliability and redundancy we had also as a very significant criteria, because you never know when you're going to need the emergency backup, and it always comes as a surprise, and you got to make sure it's available and working properly. Next. Finishing out the 9, we have cost in our criteria as a very important factor. We had a fuel system and runtime as an important factor. At the onset of this trade, we were considering natural gas as a potential fuel source. Our current system uses diesel. And then also, as far as runtime, we want to make sure that we have an appropriate amount of supply to get to refueling times that we're under contract for. Maintenance and serviceability. This addresses the issue that we ran into on our current system. So we rated that as an important factor to make sure that we were staying on top of the maintenance and that we weren't in a limited parts availability scenario. Scalability is just a moderate weighting factor. And this just allows us to have a little bit of extra headroom, unlike our current system where we couldn't add anything to the kilowatts that we had available to us. Regulatory and environmental compliance, it might seem strange that the weighting factor is 1. That's kind of like entry criteria. You're going to be compliant with regulatory and environmental compliance things. So that was even across all of the basic architectures. Okay, any questions on those? Okay. Next. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Jessica. She's going to take us through the scoring process and architecture options.
No, thanks, Dan.
Yep.
So first, we're going to talk about the scoring process. So the slide that Dan just had up, going through all the different categories that we were looking at and having a weighted score on how are they. So that was the first kind of weighting factor, like component. So when we were going through all these, many different options, we kind of settled on two. And we went with all of those options. What was the compliance rating for that? So when we're looking at kind of how we would score different options, we're looking at what was the criteria that we were looking at? What did it take to meet that criteria? Like for this, it's power capacity and load matching. So is it the same as what we have right now? Is it more than what we have right now? Or is it so large that you would be able to handle anything and everything and pop up a couple new buildings? And that would be kind of the more extreme on the 1 to 5 range of kind of compliance. So we take the weighting factor, we times it by the compliance rating, which was just a judgment based on criteria, and then you have your score. So all of these weighted scores, how well it complies with what is the most important to you, was used as kind of to help identify what your best option. Thank you for your focusing. Any questions on that?
That's unique. That's good.
It is a great kind of fundamental way of saying what's important to you and how well does this do.
Right.
Dan's great at those and came up well. So yeah. So going through the different options. So first you have to compare what do you guys have right now. So you have one backup generator that services the entirety of the lift station and then has a partial kind of servicing of town hall. So there is one panel down in the basement that goes to the generator and says, hey, you need your sump pump in case you started flooding. You need heat so it reaches the furnace. You need your well pump to make sure you have access to water. So it meets a lot of the very basic functionalities of the town hall. And this backup generator is, of course, yeah. So that is kind of your existing scenario. You have at the end of its life generator that's only capable of servicing part of your whole package. So one of the things that we looked at when it came to additional options, so for architecture number 2 and 3, will be that it met the basic criteria of servicing the entirety of town hall, the maintenance building, the maintenance barn, and the lift station. But that was one of the, if we're gonna have an option, it needs to meet this minimum fundamental.
Jessica,
Yes.
was our 40K suitable when it was installed, or was it less than?
So it's currently suitable that when it does run, it handles the load of what it has to give. So this is the option. You could always do nothing, and technically, your lift station would still run as long as it generates.
So one of the things that it doesn't cover and why we have a battery operated backup for all of our computer systems would be an example that the continuity of operations would want us to have power to our computer systems. So much of what we do is accessing the internet. It's the printers, the copiers, the information getting out to reach alert. All of those things are not currently powered by our generator, and those are things that just over time have come into play for us. So much of what we do in our daily lives now relies on it. So
We know how many KW we need to take care of the town hall aid and the service buildings back there.
Absolutely.
I don't want to get ahead of you, Sean.
Oh, no, you're.
No, that's in your
Absolutely.
battery. I'll just let you go.
Yeah, no, so it kind of leads into the next one. So what we have is 2 options. This first option says you could have one generator that needs to be a larger size in order to accommodate the additional growth that the town halls have, to cover all the extra. If you wanted to say have, in case of an emergency, there's a tornado or people even coming to the town hall? Is the AC covered? Is all the light covered? Is all the technology backed up? Is everything underway? So in order to have one generator, it's got to be there. So we were looking at, we have 100 kilowatt generator. And this is of course with preliminary investigation. So if anything is being adjusted from there, because we're gonna look at the way you determine the path, which is accordingly. Never time. That what the building needs is pretty consistent, and then it's how much do you want to account for the lift station? How long can it run? Full bore, everything's coming, and the pumps need to run essentially nonstop for 24 hours, which is extremely unlikely, but is part of the engineering design Jim Hyde for us.
What this word portable connection was the
Range. So this would be, what if that generator fails? Well, then what's the backup to the backup? So we have power and now we have a generator. It's brand new, it's great, it's perfect. It stops working. And now what's you have? So what we'll put in any scenario is a portable generator connection. So it's a permanent connection point that a rental place, McAllister, whatever, that we call them and say, hey, wheel up a generator, plug and play, and then all of a sudden you guys.
additional backup.
Exactly. Yeah, so a portable generator, permanent backup connection.
Which is not what we have today, correct?
No, you don't have any backup to different. Yeah. So this scenario would provide full capabilities to town hall. So what that means is it will have kind of more technical side to it. So you have different phased power, and it's going to be able to reduce that phasing power in order to service town hall while also keeping its full phase to support the lift station. It's going to have a fuel tank that's underneath that it stores all its diesel right now. The existing one has it too. It'll be sized for 24-hour operation, which is a standard criteria.
Just for one day.
Yeah,
That's maximum output of the generator for 24 hours, which is never going to happen. So, but that's how they size in other words, you're not going to max out 100 kW for 24 hours to run the thing. You're gonna have a partial load on it, so you're gonna be sparingly use your diesel. So it'll last longer than the 24-hour. Size your tank based on if that thing was full loaded for 24 hours.
I assume that the lift station does not run 24 hours a day, that it cycles. It pumps down, goes back up, pumps down, and I don't know what that cycle is. How many cycles does it go through? But
People are here.
Well, let's say, yeah, July.
what's worst case,
Fourth of
July?
July, it doesn't shut down very often. So,
But we have the metrics. That
Yeah.
we can go as part of the detailed design, we would go look at the metrics, we would see what.
we can look at the average daily flow, the daily flow the average daily flow that I put in my report every month. Would be. Tell us that.
Well, I don't want to sit in here and solve the issue. It sounds like you guys are on it and I'm comfortable with this team.
no, absolutely.
It's just a little bit of a misnomer to say that it's 24 hours per month. That's full capacity things running max.
And you ran the two scenarios, diesel versus not propane, natural gas.
So the natural gas part of any additional investigation, if we went that way, was relied on. Now,
So,
let's go.
yeah,
Availability of you need that initial.
Yes.
yeah, Jim called and spoke to NIPSCO, and we don't have any capacity.
Okay, they could not supply it.
Right, they probably could, but the cost, there's a cost that, factor that goes along with that.
From a cost standpoint, diesel's the way to go.
Yes.
Because it's propane an option.
Only if you can use propane, they make LP and natural gas combined fuel tanks, so it's kind of the same thing. only you would have, instead of a diesel tank, you would have an LP tank, so.
Right.
Now, when you start talking about LP, the options we have for, well, I don't know this, are the options we have for getting reserve LP the same as we have for options for diesel?
Well, and then the other thing is, right in our UDO, we're not allowed to have a propane tank.
Have to go with the change of work.
We have to discuss. Have to paint it something.
Like it.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, so fuel and reliability was
Okay.
a large part of why both these options will be feasible. So that is first option, so we can get kind of into the second one and then talk of any additional questions once you kind of see two options. So the second was you need single phase power for town hall, and you need three-phase power for the lift station. You've already got a slab and a little pad where you're sitting. You want to use everything as is and separate the need for the conversion factor of your power to go from three-phase to single phase and have it more just a direct service like you would typically have. Well, then now you've got essentially two generators, each one having its own backup, because any one generator going out means you need a backup solution to it. So this option was to separate the single phase and the three-phase power. Instead of going from one generator, just separate it into two. It was the idea of changing the complexity of the current system, that there's a lot of utility transformers and automatic transfer switches, and you have multiple ones, and it was like, hey, how can we essentially simplify, this goes to that, this goes to that, essentially. So this has a new pad, a new generator. Each generator would be smaller than one generator that services everything. So two smaller generators compared to one larger one was the alternative option.
Would that play in the least cost also?
So the cost, of course, was on here as a factor. Now, I would say that the cost you have probably on two generators that are both smaller versus one that's larger, it's probably not going to be much of a cost difference. You have additional installation of a new pad. You have the maintenance now. Every year you're servicing two generators instead of one. That overall, I would say it's the same, if not more than what the alternative option number two for protection.
What does new service lines and breakers mean? Last time.
So,
From the second generator.
yeah, the new service line from that generator. So right now, the way,
Oh, to the second, okay. no.
yeah, I was like, there is a line that connects between the lift station and
I
the building, but
can tie the two together.
it's all good.
Thank you.
Yes. All right, so the scoring and results. So we can talk about any kind of how the configuration is changed between the two, but how it all shook out after going through every single category that Dan mentioned is you have essentially a weighted score for every single one. So we have the existing architecture, which is at the lowest score because it does not meet some of the basic needs that we were going for. It wouldn't even necessarily be, it'd be the most immediately cost-effective option, but everything is always expensive as it goes. You still can't get parts, you still can't have serviceability and reliability, you don't have backup. And then, so while do nothing is always an option, it's generally not the best option, or else we wouldn't be here. So we have architecture number two, which was one single hydropower generator that would service both. And with a weighted score of 131, whereas the architecture number three, which was two separate generators, has a weighted score that, to be honest, ended up not faring that much better than doing nothing. Only because once you start getting into how much additional maintenance is going to be needed on two different generators, once you get into the system complexity being simpler, but also just as complicated, it ended up not being a very gratuitous option, even though on paper, it would be a sound idea to say, let's split the two, that its pros did not outweigh its cons. So with that being said, architecture number 2, single higher power generator that would service both is the option that we're recommending from pursuing the final design implementation of a generator. And that was our engineering analysis.
And we include in the back, there's 3 slides that show every criteria and all the scorings. And so you can see the pros and cons pretty quickly in that. If there's interest, we can go through it. If not, we'll just.
I'm comfortable with where we are.
Okay.
A lot of reading, but in tabular format, so it makes it easy.
Yeah.
So
It also provides a nice history for the town to have, if anybody in the future would question, why this was selected, they can go through everything. That's one of the things that we've always strive to do in this new council, is to make sure we have the basis for our decisions well documented.
That's been well received too.
Yeah,
Good.
the objectivity is just excellent. In facts.
Okay.
Is it?
Okay. So one of the, I guess I can talk to this. Jim Hyde provided us with a lesson learned. This is important for us to keep track of when things are identified as areas that maybe aren't the best, and we want to take an opportunity to improve them as we put a new system in. So one of the things that Jim identified during our discussions is the way that we're currently performing our annual maintenance. He pointed out that unless you're running the diesel engine at full load, you're not really running the diesel engine. Okay, it could when it comes time to use it and you put the load on it, it may falter. You may have following injectors and the likes that has built up over the short runs at zero to or low power or low loads. So we put in this lesson learned and developed an action plan that for Guy and to work with Jim and develop a real annual performance maintenance plan.
Would that include possibly a monthly, put it on the generator, run for 2 hours on real production?
Typically, you set it up to run once a week for an hour, unloaded, once a month, loaded. The problem with loaded out here, it means your load is the lift station primarily, and then you have the town hall, which is not really stressing the motor, right? We're not, just like we talked about capacity on here. So the lift station is running when you have wet weather events and when you have people here at the lake. So unless so if you're running this at Tuesday at 9 o'clock in the afternoon, in the morning for an hour, people, the flow may not be such that you're, so what we recommend is once a year, as a minimum, once a year, we'll just call it that. You bring in a load bank, which you can get from Cat McAllister or any, whoever you're going to set up your maintenance plan with interactions. And you bring in a load bank, they hook it up to your generator, and they just run that thing. And then they stress it to all of it. And then that burns off all your waste on your injectors and everything. And it basically cleans it out. So the phenomenon is called wet stacking on diesel engines. So that'll take care of that. You don't, it burns off that excess that doesn't get burned off when it's just running idle.
That gives it 100% load, where if we try to facilitate it in-house, you may not get that. Unless you hit that July 4th with town hall, all that. Okay, makes sense.
So we'll include that, whatever design elements that requires us to put in.
That goes along with the other basic stuff, changing filters, checking the fluid stream batteries. Just making sure they're properly charged. That kind of thing.
So this is a running list. This is where we're at right now on this. Next slide is a risk. So I love my risks, so I took credit for this risk. The sewer utility, this really has to do with if we get to the point of construction and implementation, we didn't want to take we didn't want to impose a risk that we were shutting down the current generator and taking a significant amount of time to hook up the new one. So we're going to orchestrate and the plan such that that's a very small amount of time on a good weather day, because we know out of our continuity of operations plan that our biggest threat is tornadoes, summer storms, and things of that. A good sunny day, and we'll just swap one for the other.
Ideally, during low lake, low lake season, right? You give yourself 3 days of no wet weather, just as a buffer.
So we'll be able to mitigate that
It's
risk.
the only thing we can't mitigate is the drunk on 120 that takes out the power pole.
That's true.
It's happened.
Why we're here, you know what? And from a sewer standpoint, going forward, is there any way to forecast or predict, is there gonna be a greater pump need than what we currently have? And if we replace pumps, are they gonna be more efficient than what we have, which is gonna require less KW?
Those pumps were just put in 5 years ago.
Well, the lift station.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, so that's really, that's the heaviest demand is idle.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, you know, this here is important, but
I don't,
that's drawing the amps over there.
I think we sized those to about the max we could. When we put them in. For what the system was designed for.
And how close to max are we?
Those are 10 horse motors in there. And I think the most we took out were 8s. I think. That's been a lot of pumps ago.
Yeah.
So the way we would.
We had more capacity coming in.
If we felt at any point we were at risk of exceeding capacity of our current system, the thing wouldn't, we probably wouldn't choose to redo the line all the way to Fremont. What we would probably do is increase the capacitance. In other words, the storage tank, make that bigger so that it takes longer to fill up. Yeah, and we can draw it down over time.
From a town standpoint, would we ever say no more permits?
Yes, that's possible.
I mean, there's
It's not the town area, but it's the town's choice.
It is.
not really too many more spots they can't put a house.
Well, we hope that's the case.
Yeah.
You don't know.
I mean, they would have to change, you'd have to change a lot of things in order to stack enough houses in here to make that big of a difference.
So every new connection gets council approval.
Yeah.
Part of the assessment the guy does is that.
We handle it.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, please. And I already been doing that. Is there any straggler questions or discussion?
No, I think you're right on target. I think we gotta do it. There's not a question of if, but we must do it. I believe I'm always a fan of bigger than not, because stuff always happens. Stuff always gets in the way of judgment and things you have to deal with. So I'm a little inclined to push or urge for consideration of third option,
The individual,
have two generators.
two generators. That, just to make sure we're on the same page, if you have two generators, one is dedicated to the buildings and one is dedicated to the lift station. So you don't have redundancy there.
There's not, doesn't see between them.
We didn't put it in here, but early on, we had a lot of discussions about being able to flip back and forth. And that really drove the complexity of our wiring, control systems, everything. So
Well, I think we're on the right track, just proceed with vigor.
It would be getting an even larger one than we need at this point would be the,
Anything.
yeah, the additional kind of.
I have a 40 watt, I have a 20 watt for my little house, and you're dealing with a 40 watt now. Come on. Let's get moving.
yeah, just looking forward with the single generator, larger generator with the backup hookup. We would have contracts. Part of the solution involves contracts with our diesel provider. We would have multiple locations of diesel providers. So if they were knocked out over here, we still have the availability to tap this. And then we would have the backup generator supplier on notice as well. They would know the connector style that we use, and then we would be able to respond within hours. So that's looking forward to the details work yet to be done. Okay, next slide. It would be next steps, I think. One more. So we're at the architectural review today. We plan to, based on the discussion that we've had, it looks like we're going to go ahead and move forward with our recommendation to council next week to get approval to proceed into the detailed design work. We'll plan on having in the February next year timeframe the final design review with our residents. And then during the same month, we would like to get approval to continue to move forward and advertise for bids on the new system. And then working forward, we're trying to get into full operation by October of next year. I think that's it. So we got through it a little quicker than. Right. Any other questions?
Well, congratulations, team. Well, put all the time and effort into this thing.
Thank you. Yeah, kudos to the team.
Do we have any estimate of what
That's where all the questions have to go.
dollar
So that
amounts
one,
we
yeah.
get yet? Or is it too early until we get the sign?
Yeah, go down 2 more clicks.
That way Jessica's email shows up, right?
Pull one out of all.
One more. So if you look at the cost criteria, this one compliance rating was a 3, which is between 100 and 150. And so when we kicked off this study, I presented the 150 number to council at that time. So we'll be under that higher number.
151.
150,000. Yeah.
We need it. We're a good community. We can't afford it. Mistake.
Yeah.
Especially when we know we have a problem.
Yeah, so that's a broad estimate. We'll be narrowing this down. The cost estimates will become better and better as we move through the work.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for your input.
And thank you all. I get all all the spots.
I like to see fresh faces here.
So I'm looking at the same old people as I just.
I take that personally.
Look, and I've seen you enough.
Well, you too.
You know how we feel, but I like, I outside ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a couple slides up.
Oh, thank you.
All right, well, then I'll call this meeting a wrap.
Okay. Hey, thank you all.
And then
Thanks for coming. Back to, present.
I could have given you a little down before wait this morning.